The Bible sitting on your shelf right now quotes a book you have never read, a book you cannot buy, a book that you could search for your entire life and still never find, because the original has vanished completely from the face of the earth.
Where is the book?
And the unsettling part isn't that it disappeared, it's that Scripture itself points to it. Not once. Twice the sacred writers stop the story, lift their eyes off their own pages, and say in plain words,
"This is written in the book of Jaser."
Joshua quotes this book. The text of Samuel quotes this book. Men who shaped the faith of billions treated these pages as reliable, as true, as worthy enough to stand as a witness. And then, somewhere between that ancient world and ours, silence. The book slips through the fingers of history and disappears for centuries. And it isn't alone. There is another text, even bolder, that claims to have been dictated to Moses by an angel at the top of Mount Sinai. A book that does something Genesis never does. It names the demons. It puts dates on the fall of the angels. It describes a sacred calendar that it says is woven into the very fabric of creation. Its name is the Book of Jubilees. Neither of these books is in the Bible most of us carry today, and the question that will guide the next several minutes is simple to ask and dangerous to answer. Why? Today, we're going to open the forgotten archives, but I'm going to make you a promise right at the start, because it matters. Nothing invented. Where the real history is stranger than the myth, and it will be, I'll show you. And where the myth lies to you, I'll show you that too, without fear. Because when it comes to the Scriptures, the true mystery is always worth more than the false one. Let's begin on the firmest ground there is, the kind not even the most committed skeptic can deny, because it's written in your own Bible, and you can check it tonight. Open the book of Joshua, chapter 10. It's one of the most astonishing moments in all of Scripture. In the middle of a desperate battle, Joshua commands the sun to stop in the sky, and, according to the text, the sun obeys. The daylight stretches over the battlefield in a way that defies everything we understand about the world. And then, right after this extraordinary miracle, the narrator does something curious. He stops, and he asks, "Is this not written in the book of Jaser?" Think about that for a second. The author has just described the sun standing still in the sky, and what he does next isn't to prove the miracle. It's to point to another source, as if to say, if you want the details, they're there, in that other book everyone knows. And it isn't the only time. Years later, when King Saul and his son Jonathan fall in battle, David, the future king, the man after God's own heart, composes a lament that cuts to the soul, known as the Song of the Bow. And once again the sacred text records, this is written in the book of Jaser. Stop and absorb the weight of that. The biblical authors knew this book. They trusted it enough to use it as a reference, as a witness, as proof. To those people, the book of Jaser was not some obscure legend or rumor. It was real. It was known. It was respected enough to hold the memory of two of Israel's greatest miracles and one of its most sacred songs. And yet, it never reached us. The original dissolved into the dust of the centuries. It vanished so completely that today not a single scholar in the world can say with certainty what was written on those pages. Now pay attention, because here lies the part that very few channels have the courage to tell you. You may have already seen a book of Jaser for sale, in bookstores, online, in editions with mysterious covers. And the temptation is enormous to say, there it is, we found the lost book. But the truth is more intriguing than that comfortable lie. The text circulating today under that name is a medieval Jewish work written many centuries after the events it describes. It's what scholars call a midrash, an expanded retelling of the stories of Genesis, full of legendary details, translated into English only in 1840. And there was even an earlier forgery in the 18th century that tried to pass itself off as the true book, and fooled a great many people. So let's be honest, the book you can buy is not the page Joshua held in his hands. The original, the real one, quoted by the Bible itself, is still lost. And that's exactly where the mystery stops being cheap and becomes genuinely fascinating. Because the real question isn't, where do I buy the book of Jasher? The real question is, what was written in that original book, known to the prophets, that was lost forever? What details about the sun standing still, about David's lament, about the ancient world, were swallowed by time? And here's one more detail for those who like to go deep into the well. In a very ancient Greek version of the Old Testament, there are scholars who see a third possible mention of that same lost book, hidden under a slightly different name, as if it were a clue left behind. Small fragments, scattered like crumbs across different texts, all seeming to point to the same empty space. A book that existed, that was read and loved, and that today we know only by the shadow it left behind. If Jasher is the lost book, now we turn the page to its exact opposite, because the book of Jubilees is the surviving book, and in many ways, it's the more disturbing of the two, for one simple, chilling reason. Unlike Jasher, this one we have whole, word for word. The book of Jubilees was written around the 2nd century before Christ. We're talking about a text more than 2,000 years old, and this isn't internet speculation, it's archaeology. In 1947, near the shores of the Dead Sea, in a place called Qumran, ancient scrolls were found hidden inside caves, stored in clay jars, preserved by the dryness of the desert for 2 millennia. The Dead Sea Scrolls. And among all those sacred texts, guess which one was among the most copied of all? The Book of Jubilees. That ancient community didn't just know this book, it revered it, copied it again and again, treated it as scripture. That's a fact that sends a chill down the spine. While many people today don't even know the book exists, 2,000 years ago there was a community in the desert that considered its sacred word important enough to hide and protect alongside the scrolls of the Bible we know. And what does this book say? Well, it begins in a way that stops anyone in their tracks. Jubilees presents itself as a revelation given to Moses by an angel of the presence at the exact moment he was on Mount Sinai receiving the law. And what that angel reveals goes far, far beyond the Genesis you grew up reading. Remember the fall of the angels back in chapter 6 of Genesis? Those enigmatic verses about the sons of God who joined with the daughters of men and the giants born from that union. In Genesis, that's just a few lines. Brief, mysterious, almost a whisper left in the air on purpose, with no explanation. Generations of readers were left with more questions than answers. Jubilees takes that whisper and turns it into a detailed account. It speaks of the Watchers, the angels who came down to earth. And here the book, along with its sibling Enoch, makes an extraordinary claim. These angels did not come empty-handed. They brought knowledge. They taught men secrets that, according to the text, were never meant to be taught. The art of forging metal and making weapons, the use of roots and plants, enchantments, the reading of the signs in the sky. Forbidden knowledge handed too early to a humanity that wasn't ready to carry it. And it was this corruption, this spilling of heavenly secrets onto the earth that, according to the logic of the book, helped bring about the ruin that would lead to the flood. And, most unsettling of all, the book describes what happened to the spirits of the giant sons of those angels after the waters receded. Because according to the text, those spirits did not simply disappear when the flood went down, they remained. And this is where the book introduces a figure whose name is not in your Genesis, but who haunts the rest of the story. Mastema, the prince of evil spirits, the chief of what was left behind. According to the Book of Jubilees, when these impure spirits began to torment humanity, the order was to imprison every one of them, each one, sealed away, removed, contained forever. But then Mastema approaches God with a request, a cold, calculated, disturbing request. He asks that a fraction of these spirits, exactly 1/10, be allowed to remain on the earth, not to destroy at random, not for pure chaos, but to test humanity, to prove the hearts of people, to serve as an instrument of testing. And according to the text, the request is granted. 1/10. Stop and think about what that implies within the logic of the book. It would mean that the evil still walking among us is not an accident, not a glitch in the system, not something that escaped control. It would be permission, a decision, a fraction deliberately left loose with a purpose. You don't have to believe this to feel the chill of the idea, and you won't find this explanation in your Genesis. It exists only here, in this book that most Bibles left behind. But perhaps the most fascinating, and in a way the most radical aspect of Jubilees, is its almost mathematical obsession with time. The book retells the entire history, from creation to Sinai, organized into rigid cycles, weeks of years, 7 times 7. 49 years make up what the book calls a Jubilee, and that's where the very name of the text comes from. For the author, time is not a loose, random line running forward. Time has a design, a symmetry, a sacred order woven into the very structure of creation from the very first day. And the book goes further. It advocates a specific calendar of 364 days, perfectly divisible, perfectly regular, in which every sacred feast always falls on the same day. That might sound like a technical detail, but it was explosive. It was a declaration of war against the rival calendars of the time, an assertion that God's time followed a perfect logic that humanity had a duty to respect. It's this hidden calendar, this idea of a sacred clock behind all of history, that so many of you have debated with passion in the comments of past videos, and here, in this 2,000-year-old book, is one of its most ancient origins. And now the story takes a turn that ties together everything we've explored on this channel. Because the Book of Jubilees did not disappear everywhere. No, in one specific Christian tradition, the Ethiopian Orthodox Church, it never at any point left the Bible. To this day, at this very moment as you watch this video, it is sacred scripture there. Read, revered, preserved in the ancient Ethiopian language, Ge'ez. And it's the same place, the same tradition, that also kept the Book of Enoch, the one we've already visited here on the channel. So notice how the entire question changes shape once you understand this. Was the book removed, or was it simply never accepted in some places, while remaining perfectly sacred in others, crossing the centuries without ever being touched? The answer, as you'll see, changes everything. And this brings us to the question that drives this entire video. If these books were known, quoted by the prophets themselves, copied tirelessly, preserved carefully by entire communities, why then are they not in most of the Bibles we have today? Here is where I need to be very honest with you, because it's exactly at this point that most of the internet will lie straight to your face. The popular answer, the version that gets easy clicks, goes something like this: that there was a single secret meeting, a single shadowy council where powerful men sat in a closed room and simply struck these books off the list, hiding the truth from humanity forever. It's a great story. It has a villain, a conspiracy, a secret. The only problem is that it isn't true. There was no single day. There was no single room. There was no single decree that erased these books from the world. The formation of the Bible, of what got in and what was left out, was a slow, complicated process that dragged on for centuries. Different communities, in different regions with different languages, reached different conclusions over many generations. It wasn't a coup. It was a slow accumulation of human choices. And maybe that's the most unsettling thing of all, because it's easier when there's a clear villain to point a finger at. It's more comfortable to imagine an organized conspiracy. But the reality is messier and, in a way, more frightening. There was no single villain. There were choices, many of them spread across generations, made by people who were trying, in their own way, to protect what they considered sacred. So why, in the end, did Jubilees and Jasher get left out for most traditions? The reason was mainly theological, not conspiratorial. These books in general came later, written centuries after the events they describe, and they carried details that many religious leaders considered dangerous speculation: specific names of demons, exact dates for cosmic events, expansions and branches that, in their view, could pull people's attention away from the central message of faith and redemption. On one hand, these details profoundly enriched the understanding of Scripture. They filled gaps. They answered ancient questions. On the other hand, they were a distraction, or worse, a danger, something that could divert the faithful from the essential, leading them to endless curiosities. And it is precisely this tension, this same division from 2,000 years ago, that many of you are experiencing today in the comments on this channel. On one side are those who argue with conviction. These texts complete what the Bible only hints at, illuminating the obscure corners of the stories we love. On the other side are those who respond with equal firmness. They are a distraction from what really matters, an excess that confuses more than it clarifies. And the most beautiful part of all this is that both sides, without realizing it, are asking the same question that divided entire faith communities 2,000 years ago. The only difference is that now the question has fallen into your lap. Now the choice is yours. So in the end, what do we do with the forgotten archives? The Book of Jasher, the true, the original, remains lost, quoted by the Holy Scriptures themselves, known to the prophets, and yet forever out of our reach, like a locked door whose key has been thrown away. The Book of Jubilees, on the other hand, survived. It traversed the caves of the Dead Sea, traversed 2,000 years of history, traversed empires that rose and fell, and to this day remains sacred to millions of people in Ethiopia. They were not erased by a single villain in a dark room to the sound of a sinister soundtrack. The truth is less cinematic and, for that very reason, more human and more disturbing. They were left behind by choices. Some made for protection, some out of caution, and some for reasons that, honestly, we may never fully understand. Perhaps they were left out to spare us confusion, to keep the central message clear and objective. Perhaps they were withheld to hide something that humanity is not yet ready to bear. Or perhaps, simply, the story of the Scriptures is far more confusing, far more human, and far more complex than any of us would like to admit. And, ultimately, the choice of what to do with these books is entirely yours. Do you prefer the clarity and security of the canon you know, the Bible that fits in your hand? Or are you drawn to the complexity, the shadows, and the unanswered questions of what has been forgotten? I really want to know. Tell me in the comments, of all the revelations we made today, which impacted you the most? Was it the image of the ark surrounded by the animals themselves in Jasher? Was it Masterma's cold and calculated request in Jubilees? Or was it discovering that Nicaea, after all, wasn't the villain you were told she was? I read every comment one by one. And if you want us to open the next forgotten file together, perhaps diving headfirst into the Book of Enoch, perhaps investigating the Watchers to the end, leave a comment below. Like the video, subscribe to the channel, and turn on notifications. May God bless you, and I'll see you soon.